What if you've been paying until today for decisions made centuries ago? Think about that for a moment. Not all debts are material. Some are emotional. Others are energetic. You feel, without explanation, that you're carrying something you never lived. A memory that isn't yours, but pulses as if it were. Maybe you felt it when looking at a crown in a museum, or when visiting ancient ruins and feeling a lump in your throat, or perhaps when hearing an anthem or reading a story about a fallen empire, and something inside you whispers, "I was there." Have you ever been afraid to shine? Ever rejected power without knowing why? Felt like leading is dangerous, that standing out is a threat, even with no apparent reason? It could just be coincidence. Or it could be an echo. Because sometimes, the soul carries marks the mind can't explain. Have you ever caught yourself crying over something you never lived? Felt nostalgic for a time that wasn't yours? Or experienced an irrational fear in a seemingly harmless situation? Science used to ignore that. But today, it's beginning to listen. In a remarkable experiment, scientists conditioned mice to fear the scent of cherry blossoms. Every time they smelled it, they received a mild shock. So far, nothing new. But what shocked the scientific world was what happened with the offspring of those mice. Without ever having been shocked, they reacted with fear to that same scent. Even though they had never been harmed. Even though they had never witnessed the trauma. The conclusion? The fear was inherited. Chemically, biologically, energetically. Epigenetics teaches us that intense emotional experiences leave marks on our genes, turning expressions on or off, and these can be passed down through generations. Now think, what if instead of cherry blossoms, it was the sound of a crowd applauding you? What if it was the weight of a difficult decision that sentenced someone to death? What if it was the guilt of having had it all and still losing everything? Science proves you don't need to remember in order to carry. In an even more intriguing field, we find transplant studies. Many patients report profound changes after receiving donor organs. One woman began craving chicken nuggets and listening to rock music, two things she used to hate. She later found out her donor was a teenage rocker, obsessed with fast food. Another man started writing poetry, something he'd never done before. His heart? It came from a poet. These cases, though anecdotal, are multiplying. And they raise a troubling question. Is consciousness really only in the brain? Or do our cells also remember? What if the soul isn't located, but distributed? A field of information that expresses itself wherever it can, in every atom of our being? Could it be that, at birth, we inherit not only a body, but an untold story pulsing in our blood and sensations? Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of symbols, myths, and memories shared by all humanity. He believed that, even if you don't remember a past life, you feel its presence in dreams, fantasies, and unexplained impulses. And now, neuroscience seems to support the old Swiss sage. Studies show the brain reacts to symbols as if they were real experiences. When you imagine standing before a crowd, under spotlights, with a crown on your head, your body reacts. Your heart rate changes. Your muscles tighten. Your biology doesn't distinguish imagination from reality. So when you dream you're fleeing guards in medieval armor, or get chills at the sight of a throne, maybe it's not just imagination. Maybe it's an echo. Science still hesitates to say you've lived other lives. But it already admits that you carry memories that aren't yours, and that those memories shape your reactions, your fears, your choices. What it calls epigenetics might be the technical term for what the ancients called karma. And what you believe to be weakness, hesitation, blockage, might just be an ancient plea from your soul, crying out for release. If your body carries the wounds of lives you never lived, can you truly say you've never been someone other than who you are now? And if your soul was once crowned, but also betrayed, which part of that story still lives in you? Have you ever walked into a place where the air felt heavy, even without any clear reason? Or met someone who radiated authority without ever raising their voice? These experiences aren't merely emotional, they're energetic. The soul, even when it changes bodies, carries with it remnants of its journeys. And when that soul once wore a crown, the marks left behind don't fade with time. They imprint themselves in what we call an energetic inheritance. Energetic inheritance can't be seen, but it can be felt. It's like a subtle scent that clings to the soul's vibrational field. Imagine an invisible field surrounding your body. This field has been called aura, astral body, etheric double, morphogenetic field. In modern physics, some researchers speak of subtle information fields. In ancient spirituality, this record has had a name for millennia, the Akashic Records. These records are like a cosmic library where every choice, thought, and emotion is stored, not as punishment, but as trace, as vibration. And when we speak of a soul that once led armies, signed life or death decrees, ruled over people, that energy leaves very specific marks. You don't need to remember to carry it, because the inheritance isn't in the mind. It's in the field. To be king or queen, in popular memory, is a symbol of glory. But on the soul level, power rarely comes without pain. Royal souls often carry records of betrayals and poisonings, often by those closest to them. Cruel decisions made in the name of kingdoms, yet that harmed thousands. Isolation at the top, from not being able to trust anyone. Constant fear of losing power, the throne, or life. These experiences create vibrational scars. And even after reincarnating as an ordinary person, that energy continues to pulse quietly. It manifests as unexplained tension, invisible danger, or even vague guilt. As if something terrible was once done, but no one knows what. The soul carries the weight of every decision, even those made from distant thrones, in forgotten centuries. Maybe you felt uncomfortable when praised, as if the spotlight embarrasses you. Or perhaps you avoid leadership roles, even though you're fully capable. Or feel uneasy with money, status, or power. You ask yourself, why do I sabotage myself? Why am I afraid to own my worth? Maybe because you once had everything, and lost it, or used it poorly, or were hurt because of it. The energetic inheritance of royalty may express itself as fear of being seen or exposed, unconscious rejection of authority in wielding it or submitting to it, the sense that shining is dangerous, guilt when receiving, fascination with royal symbols, crowns, thrones, lions, gold, purple, swords, castles, recurring dreams of palaces, wars, betrayals. These are clues, fragments of a story that may not be in your physical DNA, but pulses in your spiritual DNA. What you avoid today may be exactly what destroyed you in the past. The soul is intelligent. It protects itself however it can. But too much protection becomes a prison. Maybe in a past life, you used power to control. And in this one, you avoid all control to avoid repeating that mistake. Maybe you were worshipped and corrupted. And now you reject any sign of prestige, even when it's well-earned. Or maybe you were betrayed by those who flattered you, and now you confuse love with a trap. Royal energy is not just shine. It's weight, responsibility, history. And that history, when left unexplored, becomes a veil over your current existence. But when brought to light, it can be transformed into pure wisdom. Energetic inheritance is not destiny. It is raw material. And you, here and now, are the sculptor of your new crown. Maybe you don't need to keep running from power. Maybe you just need to heal it. Not every soul that once ruled wishes to rule again, because beyond the jewels, feasts, and praise, there is a silence that echoes far too loudly. The weight of having had everything and still not escaping pain. A soul that has been crowned knows the throne shines on the outside, but wounds on the inside. And in many lifetimes, it returns not to repeat power, but to heal from its impact. As seductive as power may seem, it does not come without consequences. Souls that once had much influence, wealth, dominion, often carry a vibrational debt, not as punishment, but as a tendency toward balance. And balance often comes in the form of lack. That's why some people, even highly capable ones, reincarnate into extremely humble conditions. It's not punishment, it's alchemy. The soul experiences the other side of the scale, so it may understand the value of what it once had and perhaps failed to honor. These people usually carry a quiet strength. They speak little but leave an impact. Their gestures are simple, yet they carry an ancestral aura. They are not interested in rising to the top. They are interested in serving with awareness. There is, however, a silent risk, spiritual arrogance. Many, upon accessing glimpses of past lives, cling to their royal identity as if it were a trophy. I was a king. I was a queen. I am special. But the awakened soul knows, none of that matters if the ego is still in charge. To be an old soul is not a badge of pride. It's a spiritual responsibility, because true power does not impose. It inspires. It does not demand. It offers. It does not dominate. It uplifts. If you were once a king or queen, the calling now is not to repeat the throne. It's to rewrite its meaning with humility, presence, and truth. Some souls, at a certain point in their journey, simply renounce the crown. They return as gardeners, teachers, laborers, single mothers, wanderers. And in these simple, silent lives, they heal millennia-old wounds, because they learn to serve without expecting applause, contribute without needing to command, love without fear of betrayal, lose everything and still trust. This abdication is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the soul saying, I have been a king. Now I want to be human. The karma of the crown is not a curse. It is a calling to look at power with new eyes, to understand that true royalty isn't about dominion, but about spiritual maturity. And when the soul realizes this, something magical happens. It no longer needs to run from greatness, nor lose itself in it. It simply reigns within itself. Not every crown sits on the head. Some, the soul carries in the heart. Do you feel like your current life is too small for who you are inside? Maybe it is exactly the stage where your soul chose to perform its greatest alchemy. Do you feel like your current life is too small for who you are inside? Maybe it is exactly the stage where your soul chose to perform its greatest alchemy. Numerous studies with athletes show that imagining a physical activity activates the same brain areas as actually doing it. In other words, For the brain, what you vividly visualize is practically real. Now think of past life regressions, guided meditations where people see castles, crowns, prisons, escapes, wars. Even if the rational mind doubts, the body feels. And it responds, with sweating, racing heartbeats, relief, or tears. Science confirms. Emotions don't need to be based on objective facts to be true. If the body reacts, it means something was touched. So, what matters more? Whether you were really a king, or the fact that a part of you still believes you were, and lives accordingly? Modern physics already acknowledges that everything is energy. We are made of atoms, and those atoms are 99.9999% empty space, filled with vibrational fields. The phenomenon of quantum entanglement shows that two particles, even separated by thousands of miles, can instantly influence each other. So what if this also happens with parts of the soul scattered across different lifetimes? What if the so-called Akashic records are, in truth, an ancient metaphor for this all-pervading field of information? Maybe your past life as a king or queen isn't behind you in time, but vibrating in parallel, influencing your energy field right now. Just as two tuned instruments resonate in unison, maybe your soul is still vibrating with ancient versions of itself. Jung said that myths are psychic truths. You may not consciously remember a life as a monarch, but your unconscious may carry that image as an inner symbol. Royalty, in this sense, is more than status. It is a universal archetype, tied to authority, sovereignty, and the soul's radiance when it recognizes its own worth. When you feel drawn to thrones, castles, or crowns, maybe you're not remembering a reign. Maybe you're remembering who you are inside. And that's enough. Because in the end, the story of the soul doesn't need to be literal to be profoundly real. Science did not come to destroy spirituality. It came to translate its mysteries into new languages. When you feel, dream, imagine, you are accessing something. It might be a memory. It might be a symbol. It might be both. And maybe at this point it no longer matters to separate the two. Because whatever the origin, the call to awaken is now. The soul doesn't need to be proven. It only needs to be heard. It's not enough to know that you carry something ancient. You must release what weighs you down and activate what lifts you up. Healing the royal inheritance isn't about erasing the past. It's about making peace with it. It's about looking at your own soul and saying, I honor who I was, but now I choose to be different. This block is an invitation to practice, so the energy left behind by ancient reigns can become living wisdom applied in your daily life. You don't need deep hypnosis to access what your soul has lived. All it takes is intention, presence, and sensitive listening. A simple practice. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Imagine a silent hall. At the center, a throne. Slowly you approach it, not as a servant, not as an intruder, but as someone who recognizes this place was once mine. Sit on the throne. Observe what you feel. Guilt? Fear? Strength? Pride? Sadness? This symbolic throne reveals how your soul currently relates to power. At the end, visualize yourself offering this throne back to the earth. You don't reject it, you transmute it, and then rise as a new kind of sovereign, one who doesn't rule over kingdoms, but over themselves. This visualization can be done for 7 consecutive days, always in silence, with a lit candle or soft ancestral music. Each time, you may notice subtle shifts. Posture, clarity, resolve, forgiveness, Royal inheritance is often crystallized in old emotions. Fear of failure, shame in shining, guilt around leadership. Some practices that help untie these energetic knots include EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. By gently tapping on energy points in the body, such as the temples, center of the chest, chin, you can release limiting patterns. While tapping, repeat phrases like, "Even though I fear power, I deeply accept myself. I release all guilt linked to leadership. I now choose to reign with lightness and wisdom." Intuitive writing. Write a letter to the version of yourself who was once a king or queen. Say what you feel. Thank them, release them, forgive them. Then write as if you were that ancient soul, responding to you. What would they say? What wisdom would they leave behind? This type of writing accesses the unconscious and brings forth content that rational thinking can't reach. Healing is only complete when it reaches everyday life. Do you want to reign? Then reign with awareness, even if only over a small routine. Lead a project with empathy. Care for someone without needing to control. Receive a compliment without hiding. Say no firmly without guilt. Manage your money without fearing you'll seem greedy. These are small acts that, vibrationally, say, "I honor power, but now I use it with heart." That is the new crown. And the good news? You don't need to earn it. The ancient soul that you are has already walked enough paths. Now it's time to choose a new one. The royal soul is not the one who commands the world, but the one who has learned that the greatest throne is a body at peace. You don't need to keep repeating old stories. With every conscious choice, the soul is freed. With every act of compassion, an inner empire rises. Each time you say yes to your worth, you reclaim a forgotten piece of yourself. Healing the royal inheritance isn't a magical ritual. It is a silent decision renewed with each sunrise. And you are ready for it, because no one receives a crown until they can first face their own reflection in the mirror. You don't need to remember every detail of who you were. You just need to listen to the whispers of the soul, the fears that feel too big, the desires that can't be explained, the passions that arise without reason. All of that are clues, fragments, echoes of a story older than your current name. Maybe you once ruled empires, or condemned the innocent, or saved entire kingdoms in silence. But what matters now isn't what you did. It's what you'll do with what you feel. You no longer need to deny your greatness, but you also don't need to fear it. The fear of leading, of being seen, of thriving, it wasn't born in this lifetime. It was born the exact moment your soul realized that power could hurt. But now, you know more. You know you can lead with love, be seen with integrity, prosper without guilt. The crown is still there, not on your head, but vibrating in your field. Some crowns don't shine, but you still carry them. And maybe deep down, that's exactly what you needed to remember. Slow pause. Silence. Deep breath. The royalty of the soul does not shout. It simply is. Present. Silent. Unshakable. Today, you don't need a throne, because you've finally discovered where your kingdom lives. Within you.